Monday morning, 11 a.m. LA time, June 29th. I can't believe it. Welcome to Creative Currency. I'm Jeff Gordon, the founder of Writers Boot Camp since 1989. I want to welcome Holt William, my good friend and a great friend of Writers Boot Camp, an artist in all facets of the entertainment industry. Holt, thanks for doing this Creative Currency series.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me.
It's awesome. You know, getting to know you has been fascinating, and it was an honor to meet your mom, who was out here on a conference.
Oh yeah, she
She's
had she had great things to say about you, by the way.
oh cool,
Hmm.
yeah, and it was just fun to hang out. And it's since my parents are gone many years. About I moved to LA in 1985. You know, it's always cool to have that extended family feeling, and it's great that she supports you. And I just wanted to know, because you're so cool in that you understand tech. You're a filmmaker, you come from a music background, you still play music, you're an editor, and one of the purposes of Creative Currency is to discuss with our alumni and the larger creative community the pivot that's been happening, not just since the onset of or the onslaught of social media, 15 years ago and such, but also to discuss where the opportunities and the pivots are based on the traditional industry. But I first wanted to welcome you and then ask you. Your family has really interesting businesses. Your mom is a businesswoman, also with a scientific awareness and orientation and background. Did they support your venture into the arts?
Uh, not exactly, not exactly at first. I mean, they were very supportive as far as my brother was actually in the Raleigh Boy Choir. He went to England and sang, and very traditional Italian music, just impossible things to sing. And so they were very supportive in that way. As soon as I was like, I want to do this as a profession, they were like, no, you should go to business school. And so I went to business school. So
Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah, I went to East Carolina for their business management program, and my first 2 years I was majoring in partying and business.
Nice.
So
That's a great double
yeah,
major.
it
It's
was the double
it's
major.
very effective.
Yeah.
Um, you know how we're influenced young by music, at a very early age. Who were being from North Carolina, which when I traveled after for 6 months after undergrad at Illinois, my national fraternity brought me on as the director of chapter services, and it was a great experience going to about 40 campuses and some in the South. And I loved Chapel Hill when I was there, and I knew through that fraternity uh, a Jewish ex-mayor of Durham, Mutt Evans. But I realized how regional this country is. Of course, we're in California. It's highly regional, and we think we're special now, even though I'm from Chicago. So, what were your three favorite artists? It's a long way to get there. Your three favorite bands or artists in high school, and how directly did that influence your music, or had you already been doing music prior?
Well, I'm gonna go even before high school just to start because I think you're gonna like this answer. But when I was in, gosh, maybe the sixth grade, I discovered James Taylor, which is a
Oh,
North Carolina artist, phenomenal songwriter. I mean, you can even take those songs and they're basically just he's an amazing poet too, you could say.
right.
But I mean, it was to the point where, and maybe I was even younger than that, but my parents were called because I was skipping class to listen to James Taylor.
Just to stay at home and listen?
Well, I would go say I'm going to the bathroom and go. I mean, I don't remember like I was just so young, but I was like obsessed. And when I discovered music, it was something that I had to do. And taking drum lessons and getting them to like help me do that was a little different for what my family was like, predominantly doing as far as my cousins and playing soccer. But anyway, so I mean, I got into
But
music.
you also played a lot of soccer too, right?
I did, yeah. I mean, that was really like what I was doing all the way up through even college. I played club at ECU, and we didn't have a varsity team, so we really were like kind of traveling with the girls' varsity team and doing that sort of thing. But by the time I got to high school, my music taste had really sort of developed. I was into pop punk and alternative and watching sort of the, at the time I was embarrassed to say I was into emo music, but those bands shaped me. And I mean, I watched bands like Cartel go from playing a 80-person venue to being in the top 40s,
Got it.
And that sort of connect to me was like, wow, I just watched this thing happen. And music isn't something that at the time I thought happened in Los Angeles, And so music was something for me that at that point I was like, wow, you really can connect with these little artists and start putting out music and watching it happen time and time again. So, but yeah, my three like high school bands were actually probably Cartel because I'd seen them and just had an amazing experience. Taking Back Sunday was another band that really sort of blew up, and then Third Eye Blind, which was
Oh,
kind of
wow.
a 90s band that I just had resonated with since I was younger. They were one of my first albums was actually Third Eye Blind's self-titled, which is weird to give to a 9-year-old, but
Right.
you know,
So, at the time, how did you come to understand the opportunity in music? Did it feel more accessible like it is today, where there's a democratization and people can get discovered by doing covers on initially it was on YouTube and then TikTok, right?
so YouTube didn't really exist like it does now in high school for me. It was like the viral video was just kind of starting. I mean, this was 2004 to 2007.
Because wasn't Bieber discovered on YouTube by Usher?
Yeah, but I'm a lot older than Bieber. Not a lot,
You
but
seem so young. I'm
well,
kidding.
5 years in the music, 5 years in that period of time was just completely different. Bands were blowing up in high school on MySpace and this website called Pure Volume,
Right.
and
Speaking of you, your volume went down a little bit.
oh, did it? Is it still
Yeah.
working?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I didn't do anything.
Yeah. Um, and so when you've only recently, truly recently, and you work all the time, transitioned to LA. But what came first, the live stream of Simply Mandy, right? Or the short film at Toronto? And when did you start not only producing your own music, but then producing other content? And then, and this is a lot, but how did then social intersect or interact with that? Because you and our mutual friend Victoria Prince, who will hopefully meet soon, and thank you for putting me on her podcast, which was a blast. And by the way, Holt is an amazing producer as well as director, and I've seen him do a couple of shoots that I've been included in, which was fun. Has been fun. How does that all intersect? And because I look to you and Victoria as such expert people in that world of content creation. But if you can look back briefly at the genesis or like a project or two, maybe the order of it, because you
Yeah.
always seem to be working.
Well, I've been at the creative arts and creation process now for 15 plus years. And that started where I actually went back to school in Middle Tennessee State for audio engineering and was doing
Hmm.
music and working with artists. And one of my friends that I was producing ended up having a top 10 country song. And so that sort of audio engineering background led me to video, which was around 12 years ago, where I kind of started putting the things together and doing commercials and all kinds of shoots back in North Carolina. But I've only been out here for less than 3 years. And in those 3 years, I realized how valuable Los Angeles can be, just as far as a mecca for creatives and, getting everything together to where it's just very different than it was in North Carolina. And so when I moved out here as a live streamer. I had taken my band's concert and basically put it on TikTok to where I had a click track, I had music coming in, I had lights, song requests, all that. And by the time I got to TikTok or to Los Angeles, TikTok was training me. And I was speaking directly with, heads of live and heads of shop, and that sort of culminated to where they were like, hey, we want to train you on how to run a shop live, which is this new thing. Little did I know that the person that they had set up to help run that just didn't have the knowledge that I had with cameras and whatnot. So I sort of set up the first two camera live, had a switcher, was doing multiple, audio engineering things like compression and EQ and whatever. And then when we set up to do that live for Simply Mandy's, we were hoping to make $100,000, not 730K.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and that was over 6 hours.
Yep. It was supposed to be 5 hours, and they said, well, if we go another hour, we'll probably set the U.S. record. And I was like, well, so.
And what were the essential components or mechanics of that? Because how is it reaching an audience, and what kind of a fan base did that company, that seller, that content creator already have?
Well, Mandy, she basically already had a good following, a good brand. And when she went live, she would get 700 to 1,000 people in there every time. So TikTok, so they actually fronted some of that income to TikTok as ad spend to push the live out. So we did 1 million views, but from those 1 million views, we were able to, really hit those numbers to where it was profitable.
And what were they selling, and what was the functionality that allowed things to be purchased, and has that evolved significantly since then?
It hasn't evolved significantly. It all sort of started in some of these Asian countries and markets, and we knew that, and we saw how social selling was working in China, and they're like, well, we think this can work in the US, and of course it could. And the products they were selling were shampoo, hair care stuff, skin care, a couple pieces of merchandise, but we could see in real time what was selling and what to focus on. And you just get your data so incredibly fast. I mean, I was watching something recently where someone was talking about, the focus groups for movies and how that used to be the most valuable tool that Paramount or Warner Brothers had, was these focus groups, because you could run it, figure out what parts of the movie weren't great, go back and do that. Well, that feedback was happening in real time for us. And so we were able to say, don't sell that product anymore, go back to this.
And was that on the Metric app connected with TikTok where you were seeing it?
Yeah,
or
they
was
have a
that
back
different
end.
feed? Okay.
No, they have a back end that actually any creator can use now. But my passion is not selling shampoo. I just kind of just got thrown into that.
Well, the production aspect of it and the repeatable processes of that, understanding the platform and how to utilize it.
No,
You know,
exactly.
there was a term that evolved, before there were web series. There was multimedia, which then evolved to the term interactive, which then became viral in a certain respect. And I used to call about 10 or 12 of the early successful people in that world in web series. I used to call them our virtual vanguard. Because, for example, Ruth Livier, one of our alumni who was a past pro member, was the first writer accepted into the new media division at the Writers Guild. But there was another term that it evolved to, which was transmedian. And I was like, is that like being Vulcan? And I had 10 steps. But in a way, one of the emphasis ultimately is on how do you look at any creative project from all of its formats, including spin-offs and merchandise and ancillary markets and other collateral.
I think of it like a if this then that type of scenario, or if, where you just kind of start to have these aha moments where you're like, oh, wait a minute, we can do this with it. Let's try this. And I think the most important takeaway from me for all of these experiences is just evolving and the evolution of how you can take one simple idea of selling something on the internet on live stream and then realizing, wait a minute, we can clip individual things out of this. Wait a minute, we can use this as an actual advertisement, and just realizing that the sky really is the limit. And that's, I
And
mean,
so, what is the chicken and what is the egg for you right now? Because you've been repped and managed by at least one or two of the significant influencer agencies or
yeah.
content creator reps. And is it simply that if your main skill set is editing or styling or talking to people about some area of expertise or being an actor or being a filmmaker or being a writer, you start with that core skill set, and then as you grow a following, other opportunities arise?
I think so. I mean, for me, really, the chicken and the egg thing was audio engineering, was figuring out, frequency manipulation and signal processing and electrical engineering and that sort of background as far as like what's really happening on the audio side. Because I've always said that you can have great video with bad audio and it's not great video, you know?
Right.
And really, so once you get kind of the sound down, then sort of building on top of that is like what I thought was my progression of this type of thing. And I would say for me to answer the other side of that question, I'm just a big picture person. There's a lot of people that are better at being a guitar player, better at being an actor for sure, better at being an influencer. There's a lot of things or people that can do those tasks, I think, better than I can. But being the big picture person has put me in a position where I can say if this, then that, and
Right.
continue to progress.
I know you've done private showings and also live streams as a musician on TikTok. Even recently, you alluded to being a drummer, and I know you're also a singer-songwriter, guitar player. Um, but you also recently, and so I do want to ask a question that maybe we can get back to, is for some of the, more traditional, maybe even more mature individuals within our community who might be the first people to see this is creative currency number 5 in a short time. These half hours, because my 500 industry interviews from the past were long form, hour 15, hour and a half, with some Hall of Fame screenwriters and filmmakers and a lot of alumni who became successful. But when you look at the issue of how do you make money from social media, maybe we can kind of get back to that as opposed to going off too much on a tangent.
Sure.
And just talk through how, like, what you're doing right now for a living, because you have started or been brought on to launch a streaming service.
Yeah.
So how does that work? How did that opportunity come to you?
Well,
And
you asked.
how does that require your time?
Well, you've asked earlier about the, Toronto Film Festival and one of the films that I ended up producing, because I love narrative. I mean, I think it's everything that I like put together into one thing where you get to tell a story. There's music, there's audio engineering, there's framing, cameras, acting, and then marketing. And I mean, I think that's where I see the big picture. And and as far as getting into streaming, for me, it was being able to have that film recognized and have clips from it go viral. And the reason social media I think is so important is there's no defined ROI on what happens from one single person seeing your video. You might get 800 views, but if one of those people seeing your video wants to finance your entire project or whatever. So it's really about just posting and putting your content out there. And we were lucky to get the views, which led to, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. And I just kind of got led from one friend to another to where I found my current team.
By the way, the Toronto Film Festival is so great. I was there with a film once that a classmate from Peter Stark produced. It was the Tommy Chong incarceration story called AKA Tommy Chong.
Oh
And I
wow.
was actually, we went to the premiere in a paddy wagon with Tommy. Um, this was years ago. But what a lot of even our alumni don't realize is that there are very few festivals that are also markets. Cannes, Sundance, Toronto, some others, but not as major as that.
Yeah.
Two things. Tell us the genesis of that short and what it was about, and then let's segue to how are you spending your time and what are some of the tools you're using every day in your work in production and etc.
Yeah, so the short was called Her. It was with my friend Mercedes Blanche. She was on the show The Boys. She's an influencer. She's managed to get millions of followers just from her own content. And we really wanted to just, it was a very short. I mean, it was, I want to say 6.5 minutes runtime, which for us is like, it's so great that we won this, but it's not something you can sell, you know? Um, so anyway, it was just about her being in a relationship with her husband in the movie. And she just wanted something more, but was more of like daydreaming and kind of like finding out about it just through real life situations, which was her just going to dinner. So anyway, I actually didn't have much with writing that, but I was brought on, went and scouted the location, helped her put everything together. And I mean, I've got to give Mercedes credit for, making putting the right
Right.
pieces together for me to come in and help make that big picture a reality, I feel like.
Congrats. Yeah. And then segue to the opportunity for this streaming network and then or platform. And then how are you spending your time and making decisions on projects? Because I know people like me are going to you for advice all the time. Some of it leads to work, some of it is just cultivating relationships.
Yeah, well, fortunately, live streaming, even on TikTok, has been somewhat profitable for me. I mean, to where I can get on and play music and find income there. And you asked earlier, like, how do you make money on social media? And my easiest answer or best answer is personal connection and community building. And you don't need a huge community, you just need the right people to buy into what you're doing, and you can find them online. Whether it doesn't matter the platform. Once you make these connections, you know that they're real. They're real connections out there. I mean, one of my biggest supporters, I don't know what they look like, but at the same time, they're, how can I help you? This is so cool. I want to be a part of this. And in the creative arts, I mean, that's what it's about. You're
Hmm.
making art, you're finding people that like to consume and help art. And I mean, I think that's kind of the thing.
Which is why the spontaneity of LA is still something real and substantial. You know, it's very rare that in a city everybody's reflecting all the time and saying something like the thing about LA.
Yeah, yeah,
Except we do that, and even though there is some skepticism about the agenda of others and people talking about themselves, sometimes borderline narcissistically, there still is a passion about the way people share what they're doing. Now,
yeah.
obviously, that translates to social media platforms as well.
Yeah.
Do you have people commenting? Do you have haters out there that you deal with? Do you have a philosophy about how you address things? Because you're also so affable and not only likable, but easygoing.
Well, I think that comes across in my content and especially in my live stream. But yeah, of course I have haters out there,
What's
every
your
every night someone would come in there and tell me to get a day job or don't quit your day job, and I would say this is my day job.
right?
Thanks.
That,
You know.
that's hilarious. So, are the how do people find you?
So fortunately, I will say TikTok, at least with live streaming, had an incredible algorithm at one point that was really pushing me out. And it goes up and down. Sometimes you'll get on there and get thousands of views, and sometimes it's nobody. But it's, every big content creator and influencer will tell you the same thing, that consistency is key. Don't look at the numbers, just keep posting. So, I mean, That's
And for somebody who hasn't started a TikTok yet, what do you suggest they do? Do they have to be speaking directly to the camera the whole time?
Well, it is it. If I was to give advice right now, odds are this advice would be irrelevant in about 8 hours. So, because what's trending right now may not be trending 8 hours from now.
Right.
So, I mean, my best advice though is obviously if you try to just figure out how to make content. Once you find something that works, try to replicate it in different senses. But again, consistency is the most important thing. If you're wanting to start social media with absolutely nothing, just get on there and do what feels natural and comfortable to you. And try a bunch of different stuff, or sit around for a second and think about what is your niche going to be, and then try to
Right.
hit that niche. And if it doesn't work, either keep at it, you might be one video away from it, or try something else.
Is there a way that you differentiate between TikTok and Instagram?
Okay, yeah, I've got a great answer for this, and someone explained this to me, but Instagram is the stage. Instagram is you're up there, you're highly produced content. You want something beautiful and polished for Instagram. TikTok is practice and backstage. TikTok is where people want to see you. Oh man, I messed up. Oh, I'm like doing my best here. Like it's really anything goes. And I think when it went down for that one day, I saw some comment where someone goes, "Oh man, they really did just delete the most non-pressure app ever." It's just
Right.
no pressure. People with millions of followers on there will post a video, and if it's bad, it gets 80 views, 200 views.
Right.
It doesn't push everything out. There's still this thing where Instagram, it's like if you post a video that doesn't do well, that's like that hurts you. And just like a performance on a stage, they'll
Is
start
it that
doing
the
it.
audience is more personal on TikTok?
I don't exactly know why it's like this, but it definitely is, you know?
And what is the status as far as TikTok and the risk that the platform is going to be limited or changed?
Well, they do at least, or they no longer have an end date, if that makes sense. They've basically gotten rid of that. It seems like they've paired a buyer with it. I stopped paying attention because basically when I last looked at it, it was like it got the stamp of it's going to continue. And
Right.
as a creator and at one point live agency owner, I just said that's enough for me to invest my time into it again.
Got it. And then what are some of the other tools you may recommend? And, on Instagram, having, 15 years ago when Facebook took off, we had 60,000 people in our database. I felt it was compromising. Now you've seen that at least it's a focus for us now, LinkedIn and everything, just slowly growing that. And I hope if everybody is appreciating the creative currency uh, interviews and talks, that you guys go to our YouTube channel, and also writers underscore boot underscore camp at Instagram, or ping me on LinkedIn. But what are some of the tools? Because I'm seeing on Instagram all these different apps and AI things to consider. I take a screenshot and I don't even have time to go and do the research, and I'm not interested in downloading everything because we're already dealing with tech. So, what are some of the favorite tools that you're finding that is making your life and your job and some of the functionality of your career easier right now?
So I actually really do like the just in-app editor in TikTok. And they've actually done something fantastic to where you can edit in there, and then when you post, it saves a copy to your phone. So they're kind of realizing that people were taking the content off TikTok and just putting it everywhere else, where now it's not watermarked. You can just use the in-app editor. If you don't know what you're doing, I would say start there. The other thing I tell people is you don't even really have to edit on TikTok, because you can use your thumb to hit record and pull it off and make these videos and little clips by doing that. So that's something that I do very often
Right.
because it's not this stream of consciousness. You can say the first part, pause, and then pick it up, and then maybe go in and do a little finessing on the edit. But authenticity, talking to the audience, like that's where I see.
And the captioning is automated.
Oh yeah, yeah. AI captioning does fantastic job.
If you were going to consult individuals and had a consulting fee or an opportunity for a limited number of people, how would you organize that? How would you prefer people to contact you?
Uh, I mean, probably through email.
And
Just
by the way, if anybody has questions today or any creative currency sessions, just email me directly, jg at Writers Bootcamp, and I can pass along additional questions to our speakers.
yeah, it feels like email is being less and less relevant, except for really important things. You know, like if you have a lot of notes, don't text me that. If you have a lot of questions, you know what I'm saying? But even just a good email thread where I can sit down and say, okay, here's the thing. My generation was brought up learning to type very quickly. So
Right. And do you DM a lot apart from socially or personally?
uh probably not as much as some of the younger generations,
When
but
you
sure.
receive a DM, do you take that uh, professionally, depending on what the content is?
Yeah, I would say so.
It's not, you're not cynical toward that or ignoring that sort of thing.
Depends on what the DM is.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
but
I'm sure we could do a whole session where we go through, you know, etiquette.
oh yeah,
Or there's probably some adapted word we could add to the vernacular,
definitely.
some adaptation or mutation of the word etiquette having to do with the internet.
Yeah, there's probably some publications out there as well.
Holt, is there anything you want to add to wrap up? Thanks for this. It went so quickly. We covered a lot of ground. If anybody, what's the best way for them to see your music or your work on
Just
TikTok?
actually, I would say Instagram. I
Okay.
moved more into a position of management on TikTok and have stopped promoting my own personal one um, as much. So, like
And
I
what's your
said,
handle? What's your handle on Instagram?
Holt William underscore Productions.
Great.
Yeah,
Anything else to wrap up with?
I think we covered it, Jeff.
Holt, thanks for your time today. I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. I'm just going to kind of wrap up with a quick announcement. You can sign off any second. But thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and leave then.
Great. So watch for our next Creative Currency meeting. Right now, the next scheduled one is Michael Sable, who happens to work in sound recording for independent film. He used to run the office at Writers Boot Camp, back in the day in the early to mid 90s, working in the afternoons from 1 to 6, and he's just a mensch of a person. So I'm glad to be able to include some, important people from the history of Writers Boot Camp and their contribution to the industry right now. We also have 2 basic trainings for the summer. I happen to have a postponement, so we've got a roster spot in this Wednesday's 10 a.m., which is also great if you know anybody from Europe. And then August 1st, Saturday mornings, which is also great for writers, who are hours ahead of us. But anyway, thank you again. Feel free to email me any questions or comments, jg at writersbootcamp.com. Have a great week.